Antwerp by Ford Maddox Ford. Read for LibriVox.org by Mark Leader. Gloom. An October like November. August, 100,000 hours. And all September, 100,000 dragging sunlit days, and half October like 1,000 years. And doom. That then was Antwerp. In the name of God, how could they do it? Those souls that usually dived into the dirty caverns of mines, who usually hived in whitened hovels under ragged poplars, who dragged muddy shovels over the grassy mud, lumbering to work over the greasy sods. Those men there, with the appearance of clods, were the bravest men that a usually listless priest of God ever shrived. And it is not for us to make them an anthem. If we found words that would come no wind that would fan them to a tune that the trumpets might blow it, shrill though the heavens that ours or yet Allah's or the wide halls of any Valhalla's, we can make no such anthem, so that all that is ours for inditing in sonnets, pantoums, elegiacs, or lays is this: in the name of God, how could they do it? For there is no new thing under the sun, only this uncomely man with a smoking gun in the gloom. What the devil will he gain by it? Digging a hole in the mud and standing all day in the rain by it, waiting his doom. The sharp blow, the swift outpouring of the blood, till the trench of grey mud is turned to a brown-purple drain by it. Well, there have been scars won in many wars. Punic, Lacedaemonian, wars of Napoleon, wars for faith, wars for honor, for love, for possession. But this Belgian man in his ugly tunic, his ugly round cap, shooting on in a sort of obsession, overspreading his miserable land, standing with his wet gun in his hand. Doom. He finds that in some sudden scrimmage and lies an unsightly lump on the sodden grass, an image that shall take long to pass. For the white-limbed heroes of Hellas ride by upon their horses forever through our brains. The heroes of Crécy ride by upon their stallions, and battalions, and battalions, and battalions. The old guard, the young guard, the men of Minden and of Waterloo Pass, forever staunch, stand forever true. And the small man with the large paunch and the grey coat, and the hat, and the hands behind the back, watches them pass in our minds forever. But that clutter of sodden corses on the sodden Belgian grass, that is a strange new beauty. With no especial legends of marching or triumphs or duty, assuredly that is the way of it, the way of beauty, and that is the highest word you can find to say of it. For you cannot praise it with words compounded of lyres and swords, but the thought of the gloom and the rain and the ugly coated figure standing beside a drain shall eat itself into your brain, and that shall be an honourable word. Belgian shall be an honourable word, as honourable as the fame of the sword, as honourable as the mention of the many-chorded lyre, and his old coat shall seem as beautiful as the fabrics woven entire. And what in the world did they bear it for? I don't know. And what in the world did they dare it for? Perhaps it is not for the likes of me to understand. They could never well have watched 100 legions go over their fields and between their cities down into more southerly regions. They could very well have let the legions pass through their woods and have kept their lives and their wives and their children and cattle and goods. I don't understand. Was it just love of their land? Oh, poor dears! Can any man so love his land? Give them 1,000 pities, and rivers and tears to wash off the blood from the cities of Flanders. This is Charing Cross. It is midnight. There is a great crowd and no light. A great crowd all black that hardly whispers aloud. Surely that is a dead woman, a dead mother. She has a dead face. She's dressed all in black. She wanders to the bookstall and back at the back of the crowd, and back again and again back. She sways and wanders. This is Charing Cross. It is 1 o'clock. There is still a great cloud and very little light. Immense shafts of shadows over the black crowd that hardly whispers aloud. And now, that is another dead mother. And there is another, and another, and another. Little children, all in black, all with dead faces, waiting in all the waiting places, wandering from the doors of the waiting room in the dim gloom. These are the women of Flanders. They await the lost. They await the lost that shall never leave the dock. They await the lost that shall never again come by train to the embraces of all these women with dead faces. They await the lost who lie dead in trench and barrier and fosse in the dark and the night. This is Charing Cross. It is past 1 of the clock. There is very little light. There is so much pain. L'Envoi. And it was for this that they endured this gloom, this October like November, that August like 100,000 hours, and that September 100,000 dragging sunlit days, and half October like 1,000 years. Oh, poor dears. End of poem. This reading is in the public domain.
Casey at the Bat by Ernest Lawrence Thayer. Read for LibriVox by Rags. Ahem. It looked extremely rocky for the Mudville 9 that day. The score was 4-6, with just an inning left to play. And so when Cooney died at first, and Burrows did the same, a pallor wreathed the features of the patrons of the game. A staggering few got up to go, leaving there the rest, with that hope that springs eternal within the human breast. For they thought if only Casey could get one whack at that, they'd put up even money with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, and so likewise did Blake. but the former was a pudding, and the latter was a fake. So on that stricken multitude a death-like silence sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey's getting to the bat. But Flynn let drive a single, to the wonderment of all, and the much-despised Blakey tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted, and they saw what had occurred, there was Blakey safe on second, and Flynn a hugging third. Then from the gladdened multitude went up a joyous yell. It bounded from the mountain top and rattled in the dell. It struck upon the hillside and rebounded on the flat. For Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. There was ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place. There was pride in Casey's bearing and a smile on Casey's face. And when responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat. No stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded when he wiped them on his shirt. Then while the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his lip, defiance glanced in Casey's eye. A sneer curled Casey's lip. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurling through the air, and Casey stood a-watching in a haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman the ball unheeded sped. "That ain't my style," said Casey. "Strike one!" the umpire said. From the benches, black with people, there went a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. "Kill him! Kill the umpire!" shouted someone in the stand. And it's likely they'd have killed him, had not Casey raised his hand. With a smile of Christian charity, the great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult. He bade the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the spheroid flew. But Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said, "Strike two!" "Fraud!" cried the maddened thousand, and the echo answered, "Fraud!" But the scornful look from Casey and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain. And they knew that Casey wouldn't let that ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Casey's lip. His teeth are clenched with hate. He pounds with cruel violence his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go, and now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Oh, somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out. End of poem. Ahem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Conservative by Charlotte Perkins Stetson Gilman. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. The garden beds I wandered by one bright and cheerful morn, when I found a new-fledged butterfly a-sitting on a thorn, a black and crimson butterfly, all doleful and forlorn. I thought that life could have no sting to infant butterflies, so I gazed on this unhappy thing with wonder and surprise, while sadly with his waving wing he wiped his weeping eyes. Said I, "What can the matter be? Why weepest thou so sore, with garden fair and sunlight free and flowers in goodly store?" But he only turned away from me and burst into a roar. Cried he, my legs are thin and few, where once I had a swarm. Soft fuzzy fur, a joy to view, once kept my body warm, before these flapping wing things grew to hamper and deform. At that outrageous bug I shot the fury of mine eye. Said I, in scorn all burning hot, in rage and anger high, you ignominious idiot! Those wings are meant to fly. I do not want to fly, said he. I only want to squirm. And he drooped his wings dejectedly, but still his voice was firm. I do not want to be a fly. I want to be a worm. Oh, yesterday of unknown lack, today of unknown bliss. I left my fool in red and black. The last I saw was this, the creature madly climbing back into his chrysalis. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Dog by Oliver Herford. Read for LibriVox.org by M. Lee. The dog is black or white or brown, and sometimes spotted like a clown. He loves to make a foolish noise, and human company enjoys. The human people pat his head, and teach him to pretend he's dead, and beg and fetch and carry too, things no well-bred cat will do. At human jokes, however stale, he jumps about and wags his tail, and human people clap their hands and think he really understands. They say good dog to him. To us they say poor puss and make no fuss. When dogs are good and cats are poor, I fail to understand, I'm sure. To someone very good and just, who has proved worthy of her trust, a cat will sometimes condescend. The dog is everybody's friend. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Dream of Man by William Watson. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. To the eye and the ear of the dreamer, this dream out of darkness flew, through the horn or the ivory portal, but he wist not which of the two. It was the human spirit, of all men's souls the soul, man the unwearied climber that climbed to the unknown goal. And up the steps of the ages the difficult steep ascent, man the unwearied climber pauseless and dauntless went. Eons rolled behind him with thunder of far retreat, and still as he strove he conquered and laid foes at his feet. Inimical powers of nature, tempest and flood and fire, the spleen of fickle seasons that loved to balk his desire, the breath of hostile climates, the ravage of blight and dearth, the old unrest that vexes the heart of the moody earth, the genii swift and radiant, sabering heaven with flame. He with a keener weapon the sword of his wit overcame. Disease and her ravening offspring, pain with the thousand teeth, he drave into night primeval, the nethermost worlds beneath, till the Lord of Death, the undying, even Azrael the King, no more with furies for heralds, came armed with scourge and sting. But gentle of voice and of visage, by calm age ushered and led, a guest serenely featured, entering, woke no dread. And as the rolling eons retreated with pomp of sound, man's spirit grown too lordly for this mean orb to bound. By arts in his youth undreamed of, his terrene fetters broke, with enterprise ethereal spurning the natal yoke. And stung with divine ambition, and fired with a glorious greed, he annexed the stars and the planets, and peopled them with his seed. Then said he, "The infinite scripture I have read and interpreted clear, and searching all worlds I have found not my sovereign or my peer. In what room of the palace of nature resides the invisible God? For all her doors I have opened, and all her floors I have trod. If greater than I be her tenant, let him answer my challenging call. Till then I admit no rival, but crown myself master of all. And forth as that word went bruited, by man unto man were raised fanes of devout self-homage, where he who praised was the praised. And from vast unto vast of creation the new evangel ran, and an odor of world-wide incense went up from man unto man, until, on a solemn feast day, when the world's usurping Lord at a million impious altars his own proud image adored, God spake as he stepped from his ambush, O great in thine own conceit, I will show thee thy source, how humble thy goal, for a God how unmeet. Thereat by the word of the Maker the spirit of man was led to a mighty peak of vision, where God to his creature said, Look eastward toward time's sunrise. And age upon age untold the spirit of man saw clearly the past as a chart outrolled, beheld his base beginnings in the depths of time, and his strife with beasts and crawling horrors for leave to live, when life meant but to slay and to procreate, to feed and to sleep among mere mouths, voracities boundless, blind lusts, desires without tongue, and ferocity's vast fulfilling, their being's malignant law, while nature was one hunger and one hate, all fangs and maw. With that, for a single moment, abashed at his own descent, in humbleness man's spirit at the feet of the Maker bent. But swifter than light he recovered the stature and pose of his pride, and, "Think not thus to shame me with my mean birth," he cried. "This is my loftiest greatness, to have been born so low. Greater than thou, the ungrowing, am I that for ever grow." And God forbore to rebuke him, but answered brief and stern, bidding him toward time's sunset his vision westward turn. And the spirit of man, obeying, beheld as a chart outrolled the likeness and form of the future, age upon age untold. Beheld his own meridian, and beheld his dark decline, his secular fall to nadir from summits of light divine, till at last amid worlds exhausted and bankrupt of force and fire, 'twas his in a torrent of darkness, like a sputtering lamp, to expire. Then a war of shame and anger did the realm of his soul divide. "'Tis false, 'tis a lying vision," in the face of his God he cried. "Thou thinkest to daunt me with the shadows, not such as thou feignest is my doom. From glory to rise unto glory is mine, who have risen from gloom. I doubt if thou knewest at my making how near to thy throne I should climb. O'er the mountainous slopes of the ages and the conquered peaks of time. Nor shall I look backward, nor rest me till the uttermost heights I have trod, and am equalled with thee, or above thee, the mate or the master of God." Even thus man turned from the Maker with thundered defiance wild, and God with a terrible silence reproved the speech of his child. And man returned to his labors, and stiffened the neck of his will, and eons still went rolling, and his power was crescent still. But yet there remained to conquer one foe, the greatest, although despoiled of his ancient terrors, at heart as of old a foe, unmaker of all and renewer, who winnows the world with his wing, the Lord of Death, the undying, even Azrael the King. And lo, man mustered his forces, the war of wars to wage, and with storm and thunder of onset did the foe of foes engage. And the Lord of Death, the undying, was beset and harried sore, in his immemorial fastness at night's aboriginal core, and during years 1,000 man leaguered his enemy's hold, while nature was one deep tremor, and the heart of the world waxed cold, till the phantom battlements wavered, and the ghostly fortress fell, and man with shadowy fetters bound fast great Azrael. So to each star in the heavens the exultant word was blown, the annunciation tremendous: Death is overthrown. And space in her ultimate borders, prolonging the jubilant tone, with hollow ingeminations, sighed, Death is overthrown. And God in his house of silence, where he dwelleth aloof alone, paused in his tasks to hearken. Death is overthrown. Then a solemn and high thanksgiving by man unto man was sung, in his temples of self-adoration, with his own multitudinous tongue. And he said to his soul, Rejoice thou, for thy last great foe lies bound, even Azrael, the Unmaker, unmade, disarmed, discrowned. And behold, his soul rejoiced not, the breath of whose being was strife, for life with nothing to vanquish seemed but the shadow of life. No goal invited and promised, and divinely provocative shown, and fear having fled her sister, blessed hope in her train was gone, and the coping and crown of achievement was hell than defeat more dire, the torment of all things compassed, the plague of not to desire, and man the invincible queller, man with his foot on his foes, in boundless satiety hungered, restless from utter repose, victor of nature, victor of the prince of the powers of the air, by mighty weariness vanquished, and crowned with august despair. Then at his dreadful zenith he cried unto God, O thou, whom of old in my days of striving methought I needed not, now, in this my abject glory, my hopeless and helpless might, hearken and cheer and succor. And God from his lonely height, from eternity's passionless summits, on suppliant man looked down, and his brow waxed human with pity, belying its awful crown. Thy richest possession, he answered, blessed hope will I restore, and the infinite wealth of weakness which was thy strength of yore. And I will arouse from slumber in his hold where bound he lies, thine enemy, most benefic, O Azrael, hear and rise. And a sound like the heart of nature, riven and cloven and torn, announced to the ear universal undying death new born. Sublime he rose in his fetters, and shook the chains aside, even as some mortal sleeper mid forests in autumn tide rises and shakes off lightly the leaves that lightly fell on his limbs and his hair unheeded, while as yet he slumbered well. And deity paused and hearkened, then turned to the undivine, saying, O man, my creature, thy lot was more blessed than mine. I taste not delight of seeking, nor the boon of longing know. There is but one joy transcendent, and I hoard it not, but bestow. I hoard it not, nor have tasted, but freely I gave it to thee. The joy of most glorious striving, which dieth in victory. Thus to the soul of the dreamer this dream out of darkness flew, through the horn or the ivory portal, but he wist not which of the two. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Flower to the Moon by Eliza Keary. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. O moon, sailing light of the night, O beautiful moon, you glide by so quickly, linger a while, one little while, moon, spare just a smile out of your white light, out of your broad, soft eye, to beguile this little, low life, me. There you go, on and on, tenderly, widely, over the earth and the sky. Have pity, sweet pity, upon only a lily bud, queen, a white lily. Yesternight I could peep at you fair, that was all. Half asleep in my bud life, with scarcely an outlook even, But today I have riven my prison and grown all the hot afternoon, so large that I see you, moon. Beautiful, brave, I, and pant for the free air above, and faint at the scant life below. Is it love that I feel? Do I grow up to loving and sorrow? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Fog Faces by Robert S. Carr, read for LibriVox.org. There's something more to fog than merely clammy water vapor. They're fat, pale, leering faces in the dark and lonesome places where the gray-white little demons in the night mists love to caper. There's something gaunt and spectral that takes walks abroad in fog. 'Tis uncertain I will ween it. It's ghoulish, none have seen it, but we who walk the woods at night have heard it in the bog. If you should go at midnight to a hidden lowland nook, behind a moss-grown boulder where the wet leaves brush your shoulder, and should crouch among the fog swirls, and should watch and wait and look, it would come wrapped in its garments of abysmal damp grey steam. You could hardly say you hear it, yet you'd know that you were near it, for you'd feel its breath upon your cheek and see its eyeballs gleam. And as it passed, the fog would twist like ghosts of little snakes. The faces would start leering. You would see their wet lips sneering as their master, gaunt and spectral, stalked away through the cane brakes. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Going to Heaven by Emily Dickinson. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston, Tharp. Going to heaven. I don't know when. Pray do not ask me how. Indeed, I'm too astonished to think of answering you. Going to heaven. How dim it sounds, and yet it will be done as sure as flocks go home at night unto the shepherd's arm. Perhaps you're going too. Who knows? If you should get there first, save just a little place for me, close to the two I lost. The smallest robe will fit me, and just a bit of crown. For you know we do not mind our dress when we are going home. I'm glad I don't believe it, for it would stop my breath, and I'd like to look a little more at such a curious earth. I am glad they did believe it, whom I have never found since the mighty autumn afternoon I left them in the ground. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. A Gull Goes Up by Leonie Adams. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston, Tharp. Gulls, when they fly, move in a liquid arc, still head and wings that bend above the breast, covering its glitter with a cloak of dark. Gulls fly. So as at last toward balm and rest, remembering wings, the desperate leave their earth, bear from their earth what there was ruinous crossed, peace from distress, and love from nothing worth, fast at the heart its jewels of dear cost. Gulls go up hushed to that entrancing flight, with never a feather of all the body stirred. So in an air less rare than longing might the dream of flying lift a marble bird. Desire it is that flies, then wings are freight that only bear the feathered heart, no weight. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Happy Death by John Frederick Freeman. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Bugle and battle cry are still, the long strife's over. Low o'er the corpse-encumbered hill the sad stars hover. It is in vain, O stars, you look on these forsaken. Awhile with blows on blows they shook, or struck, unshaken. Needs now no pity of God or man, tears for the living. They have scaped the confines of life's plan that holds us grieving. The unperturbed soft moon, the stars, the breeze that lingers, wake not to ineffectual wars their hearts and fingers. Warriors o'ercoming and o'ercome, alike contented, have marched now to the last far drum, praised, unlamented. Bugle and battle cry are still, the long strife's over. Oh, that with them I had fought my fill, and found like cover. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Hay Fever, if Edgar Lee Masters had it. Recorded for LibriVox by Tom Merritt. Ed Grimes always did hate me, because I wrote better poetry than he did. In the hay fever season, I used to walk along the riverbank to keep as far as possible away from pollen. One day Ed and his brother crept up behind me while I was writing a sonnet, tied my hands and feet, and carried me into a hayfield and left me. I sneezed myself to death. At the funeral, the church was filled with the goldenrod, and I think it must have been Ed who sowed that ragweed all round my grave. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Highwayman by Alfred Noyes. Read for LibriVox.org by JakeW. The wind was a torrent of darkness among the gusty trees. The moon was a ghostly galleon tossed upon cloudy seas. The road was a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor, and the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. The highwayman came riding up to the old inn door. He'd a French cocked hat on his forehead, a bunch of lace at his chin, a coat of the claret velvet, and breeches of brown doeskin. They fitted with never a wrinkle, his boots were up to the thigh, and he rode with a jewelled twinkle, his pistol butts a twinkle, his rapier hilt a twinkle, under the jewelled sky. Over the cobbles he clattered and clashed in the dark inn-yard, and he tapped with his whip on the shutters, but all was locked and barred. He whistled a tune to the window, and who should be waiting there but the landlord's black-eyed daughter, Bess, the landlord's daughter, plaiting a dark red love knot into her long black hair. And dark in the dark old inn-yard a stable wicket creaked, where Tim the ostler listened. His face was white and peaked. His eyes were hollows of madness, his hair like mouldy hay. But he loved the landlord's daughter, the landlord's red-lipped daughter. Dumb as a dog he listened, and he heard the robber say, "One kiss, my bonny sweetheart, I'm after a prize tonight, but I shall be back with the yellow gold before the morning light. Yet if they press me sharply and harry me through the day, then look for me by moonlight. Watch for me by moonlight. I'll come to thee by moonlight, though hell should bar the way." He rose upright in his stirrups, he scarce could reach her hand, but she loosed her hair in the casement. His face burned like a brand, as the black cascade of perfume tumbled over his breast, and he kissed its waves in the moonlight. Oh, sweet black waves in the moonlight! Then he tugged his rein in the moonlight, and he galloped away to the west. He did not come in the dawning, he did not come at noon, and out of the tawny sunset before the rise of the moon, when the road was a gypsy's ribbon looping the purple moor, a red-coat troop came marching, marching, marching. King George's men came marching up to the old inn door. They said no word to the landlord, they drank his ale instead, but they gagged his daughter and bound her to the foot of her narrow bed. Two of them knelt at her casement with muskets at their side. There was death at every window, and hell at one dark window, for Bess could see through her casement the road that he would ride. They tied her up to attention with many a sniggering jest. They had bound a musket beside her with the barrel beneath her breast. Now keep good watch, and they kissed her. She heard the dead man say, Look for me by moonlight, watch for me by moonlight, I'll come to thee by moonlight, though hell should bar the way. She twisted her hands behind her, but all the knots held good. She writhed her hands till her fingers were wet with sweat or blood. They stretched and strained in the darkness, and the hours crawled by like years, till now, on the stroke of midnight, cold on the stroke of midnight, the tip of one finger touched it. The trigger at least was hers. The tip of one finger touched it. She strove no more for the rest. Up she stood to attention, with the barrel beneath her breast. She would not risk their hearing, she would not strive again, for the road lay bare in the moonlight, blank and bare in the moonlight, and the blood of her veins in the moonlight throbbed to her love's refrain. Had they heard it? The horse hoofs ringing clear in the distance. Were they deaf that they did not hear? Down the ribbon of moonlight, over the brow of the hill, the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. The redcoats looked to their priming. She stood up straight and still. In the frosty silence, in the echoing night, nearer he came and nearer. Her face was like a light. Her eyes grew wide for a moment. She drew one last deep breath. Then her finger moved in the moonlight. Her musket shattered the moonlight, shattered her breast in the moonlight, and warned him with her death. He turned, he spurred to the west. He did not know who stood, bowed with her head o'er the musket, drenched with her own red blood. Not till the dawn he heard it. His face grew grey to hear how Bess, the landlord's daughter, the landlord's black-eyed daughter, had watched for her love in the moonlight, and died in the darkness there. Back he spurred like a madman, shrieking a curse to the sky, with the white road smoking behind him, and his rapier brandished high. Blood-red were his spurs in the golden noon, wine-red his velvet coat, when they shot him down on the highway, down like a dog on the highway, and he lay in his blood on the highway, with a bunch of lace at his throat. And still of a winter's night they say, when the wind is in the trees, when the moon is a ghostly galleon tossed upon cloudy seas, when the road is a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor, a highwayman comes riding, riding, riding. a highwayman comes riding up to the old inn door. Over the cobbles he clatters and clangs in the dark inn yard. He taps with his whip on the shutters, but all is locked and barred. He whistles a tune to the window, and who should be waiting there but the landlord's black-eyed daughter, Bess, the landlord's daughter, plaiting a red love knot into her long black hair. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Incomplete, Complete by Eliza Curie. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. I've lived my life some 70 weary years, and, gathered up on my extreme verge of time, lie looking with blind eyes on the dark sea. When I looked first at life, as now at death, my eyes were like two suns shining in strength, that pierced with sudden glory all they saw. And I will live a glorious life, I said. I will climb heights, I will shine out afar. My meant to be, complete in my I am. I am. What am I? Weary, sad and old, I've failed, am weary, failed, and sad and old. My light is quenched, 'tis dark, all dark within. I look at death, and death glooms back on me. Father, what is't? A voice, does it come from thee? Dost thou remember? Canst thou pity me? Each shall be all I meant in my great day. Thou hast not failed. God, do I hear thee say, but 7 times purified art 7-fold dear, and I've 10 cities waiting for thee here. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Irishman and the Lady by William McGinn. Read for LibriVox.org by Victoria Sandels. There was a lady lived at Leith, a lady very stylish man, and yet in spite of all her teeth she fell in love with an Irishman, a nasty, ugly Irishman, a wild, tremendous Irishman, a tearing, swearing, thumping, bumping, ranting, roaring Irishman. His face was no ways beautiful, for with smallpox 'twas scarred across, and the shoulders of the ugly dog were almost double a yard across. Oh, the lump of an Irishman, the whiskey-devouring Irishman, the great hero with his wonderful brogue, the fighting, rioting Irishman. One of his eyes was bottle green, and the other eye was out, my dear, and the calves of his wicked-looking legs were more than 2 feet about, my dear. Oh, the great big Irishman, the rattling, battling Irishman, the stamping, ramping, swaggering, staggering, leathering swash of an Irishman. He took so much of Lundyfoot that he used to snort and snuffle, oh, and in shape and size the fellow's neck was as bad as the neck of a buffalo. Oh, the horrible Irishman, the thundering, blundering Irishman, the slashing, dashing, smashing, lashing, thrashing, hashing Irishman. His name was a terrible name indeed, being Timothy Thady Mulligan, and whenever he emptied his tumbler of punch, he'd not rest till he filled it full again. The boozing, bruising Irishman, the toxicated Irishman, the whiskey, frisky, rummy, gummy, brandy, no dandy Irishman. This was the lad the lady loved, like all the girls of quality, and he broke the skulls of the men of Leith just by the way of jollity. Oh, the leathering Irishman, the barbarous, savage Irishman. The hearts of the maids and the gentlemen's heads were bothered, I'm sure, by this Irishman. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Jabberwocky, from Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Read for LibriVox.org by Quartertone.
'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jubjub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffing through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, callooh, calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Lincoln by John Gould Fletcher. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. 1. Like a gaunt, scraggly pine which lifts its head above the mournful sandhills and patiently, through dull years of bitter silence, untended and uncared for, begins to grow. Ungainly, laboring, huge, the wind of the north has twisted and gnarled its branches, yet in the heat of midsummer days, when thunder clouds ring the horizon, a nation of men shall rest beneath its shade. And it shall protect them all, hold everyone safe there, watching aloof in silence, until at last one mad stray bolt from the zenith shall strike it in an instant down to earth. 2. There was a darkness in this man, an immense and hollow darkness, of which we may not speak, nor share with him, nor enter. A darkness through which strong roots stretched downwards into the earth towards old things, towards the herdman kings who walked the earth and spoke with God, towards the wanderers who sought for they knew not what, and found their goal at last, towards the men who waited, only waited patiently when all seemed lost. Many bitter winters of defeat, down to the granite of patience these roots swept, knotted, fibrous roots, prying, piercing, seeking, and drew from the living rock and the living waters about it the red sap to carry upwards to the sun. Not proud, but humble, only to serve and pass on, to endure to the end through service. For the axe is laid at the root of the trees, and all that bring not forth good fruit shall be cut down on the day to come and cast into the fire. 3. There is silence abroad in the land today, and in the hearts of men a deep and anxious silence. And because we are still at last, those bronze lips slowly open, those hollow and weary eyes take on a gleam of light. Slowly a patient, firm-syllabled voice cuts through the endless silence, like laboring oxen that drag a plough through the chaos of rude clay fields. I went forth as the light goes forward in early spring, but there were also many things which I left behind. Tombs that were quiet, one of a mother whose brief light went out in the darkness, one of a loved one, the snow on whose grave is long falling, one only of a child, but it was mine. Have you forgot your graves? Go, question them in anguish, listen long to their unstirred lips. From your hostages to silence, learn there is no life without death, no dawn without sun setting, no victory but to him who has given all. 4. The clamor of cannon dies down, the furnace mouth of the battle is silent, the midwinter sun dips and descends, the earth takes on afresh its bright colors. But he whom we mocked and obeyed not, he whom we scorned and mistrusted, he has descended like a god to his rest. Over the uproar of cities, over the million intricate threads of life wavering and crossing, in the midst of problems we know not, tangling, perplexing, ensnarling, rises one white tomb alone. Beam over it, stars, wrap it round, stripes, stripes red for the pain that he bore for you, enfold it forever, O flag, rent, soiled, but repaired through your anguish. Long as you keep him there safe, the nation shall bow to your law. Strew over him flowers, blue forget-me-nots from the north, and the bright pink arbutus from the east, and from the west rich orange blossoms. But from the heart of the land take the passion flower, rayed, violet, dim, with the nails that pierced, the cross that he bore, and the circlet, and beside it there lay also one lonely snow-white magnolia, bitter for remembrance of the healing which has passed. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The New Arrival by George Washington Cable. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. After Campbell. There came to port last Sunday night the queerest little craft, without an inch of rigging on. I looked, and looked, and laughed. It seemed so curious that she should cross the unknown water and moor herself within my room. My daughter. Oh, my daughter. Yet by these presents, witness all, she's welcome 50 times, and comes consigned in hope and love and common meter rhymes. She has no manifest but this, no flag floats o'er the water. She's too new for the British Lloyds. My daughter. Oh, my daughter. Ring out, wild bells, and tame ones too. Ring out the lover's moon. Ring in the little worsted socks, ring in the bib and spoon. Ring out the muse, ring in the nurse, ring in the milk and water. Away with paper, pen, and ink. My daughter. Oh, my daughter. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
No Man is an Island by John Donne. Read for LibriVox by Rags. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Old Age by Eliza Carey. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. Such a wizened creature, sitting alone, every kind of ugliness thrown into each feature. I wasn't always so, said the wizened one. Sweet motions unimprisoned were mine long ago. And again, I shall be at least something out of this outside me shall wing itself fair and free. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On an Hourglass by John Hall. Read for LibriVox.org by Public Domain Scholar. My life is measured by this glass by all those little sands that thorough pass. See how they press, see how they strive, which shall, with greatest speed and greatest quickness fall. See how they raise a little mount, and then with their own weight do level it again. But when they have all gone thorough, they give o'er, their nimbling sliding down, and move no more. Just such is man, whose hours still forward run, being almost finished ere they are begun. So perfect nothings, such little blasts are we, that ere we're aught at all, we cease to be. Do what we will, our hasty minutes fly, and while we sleep, what do we else but die? How transient are our joys, how short their day, they creep on towards us but fly away. How stinging are our sorrows, where they gain but the least footing, there they will remain. How groundless are our hopes, how they deceive our childish thoughts, and only sorrow leave. How real are our fears, they blast us still rend us, still with gnawing passions fill. How senseless are our wishes, yet how great, with what toil we pursue them, with what sweat. Yet most times for our hurts, so small we see, like children crying for some mercury. This gapes for marriage, yet his fickle head knows not what cares wait on a marriage bed. This vows virginity, yet knows not what loneless grief discontentment attends that state. Desires of wealth another's wishes hold, and yet how many have been choked with gold. This only hunts for honor, yet who shall ascend the higher shall more wretched fall. This thirst for knowledge, yet how is it bought? With many a sleepless night and racking thought. This needs will travel, yet how dangers lay, most secret ambuscados in the way. These triumph in their beauty, though it shall like a plucked rose or fading lily fall. Another boasts strong arms, last giants have by silly dwarfs been dragged unto their grave. These ruffle in rich silk, though ne'er so gay, a well-plumed peacock is more gay than they. Poor man, what art a tennis ball of error, a ship of glass tossed in a sea of terror, issuing in blood and sorrow from the womb, crawling in tears and mourning to the tomb. How slippery are thy paths, how sure they fall, how art thou nothing when thou art most of all. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Parable by James Russell Lowell. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. Said Christ our Lord, I will go and see how the men, my brethren, believe in me. He passed not again through the gate of birth, but made himself known to the children of earth. Then said the chief priests and rulers and kings, Behold now the giver of all good things. Go to, let us welcome with pomp and state him who alone is mighty and great. With carpets of gold the ground they spread, wherever the Son of Man should tread. And in palace chambers lofty and rare they lodged him and served him with kingly fare. Great organs surged through arches dim, their jubilant floods in praise of him. And in church and palace and judgment hall he saw his own image high over all. But still, wherever his steps they led, the Lord in sorrow bent down his head. And from under the heavy foundation stones the Son of Mary heard bitter groans. And in church and palace and judgment hall he marked great fissures that rent the wall, and opened wider and yet more wide as the living foundation heaved and sighed. Have ye founded your thrones and altars then on the bodies and souls of living men? And think ye that building shall endure, which shelters the noble and crushes the poor? With gates of silver and bars of gold ye have fenced my sheep from their father's fold. I have heard the dropping of their tears in heaven these 1800 years. O Lord and Master, not ours the guilt. We build but as our fathers built. Behold thine images, how they stand, sovereign and sole, through all our land. Our task is hard with sword and flame to hold thine earth forever the same, and with sharp crooks of steel to keep still as thou leftest them, thy sheep. Then Christ sought out an artisan, a low-browed, stunted, haggard man, and a motherless girl, whose fingers thin pushed from her faintly want and sin. These set he in the midst of them, and as they drew back their garment hem for fear of defilement, "Lo, here," said he, "the images ye have made of me." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Pope by Charles Lever. Read for LibriVox.org by Victoria Sandels. The Pope, he leads a happy life. He fears not married care nor strife. He drinks the best of Rhenish wine. I would the Pope's gay lot were mine. But yet all happy's not his life. He has no maid nor blooming wife. No child has he to raise his hope. I would not wish to be the Pope. The Sultan better pleases me. His is a life of jollity. His wife as many as he will. I would the Sultan's throne then fill. But even he's a wretched man. He must obey the Alcoran. He dare not drink one drop of wine. I would not change his lot for mine. So here I'll take my lowly stand. I'll drink my native land. I'll kiss my maiden fair and fine, and drink the best of Rhenish wine. And when my maiden kisses me, I'll think that I the Sultan be. And when my cheery glass I tope, I'll fancy then I am the Pope. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Silence and Stealth of Days by Henry Vaughan. Read for LibriVox.org by Public Domain Scholar. Silence and stealth of days, 'tis now since thou art gone. 1200 hours, and not a brow but clouds hang on. And he that hath in some cave stick damp, locked from the light, fixeth a solitary lamp to brave the night. And walking from his sun, when past that glimmering ray, cuts through the heavy mist in haste, back to his day. So o'erfled minutes I retreat unto that hour which showeth thee last, but did defeat thy light and power. I search and wreck my soul to see those beams again, but nothing but the snuff to me appeareth plain. That dark and death sleeps in its known and common urn, but those fled to their Maker's throne there shine and burn. Oh, could I track them, but souls must track one the other, and now the spirit, not the dust, must be thy brother. Yet I have one pearl by whose light all things I see, and in the heart of earth and night find heaven and thee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Smoke by John Frederick Freeman. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. They stood like men that hear immortal speech moving among their branches, and like trees we stood and watched them, and in our still branches echoes of that immortal music stirred. October days had touched their breasts with light, with yellow light and red light and wan green, and the grey cloud that grew from low to high made the warm light more warm, the green more wan. We stood and watched them, and in our still branches we felt the warm light glow, though now the rain was loud upon the leaves, and standing there you cried, "Oh, that sweet smell! Where is the fire? Where is the fire?" For sharp upon the rain the smell came of a wood fire, and clung round, hanging upon our branches, till we saw no more those lighted trees, nor heard the rain, knew only the deep echoes and the smell of a wood fire that breathed its smoke across from some near hearth or undiscovered world.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Song for the Night of Christ's Resurrection by Jean Ingelow. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. A humble imitation, and birds of calm sit brooding on the charmed wave. It is the noon of night, and the world's great light gone out. She widow-like doth carry her. The moon hath veiled her face, nor looks on that dread place where he lieth dead in sealed sepulchre. And heaven and Hades, emptied, lend their flocking multitudes to watch and wait the end. Tier above tier they rise, their wings new line the skies, and shed out comforting light among the stars. But they of the other place the heavenly signs deface. The gloomy brand of hell their brightness mars. Yet high they sit in throned state, it is the hour of darkness to them dedicate. And first and highest set, where the black shades are met, the Lord of Night and Hades leans him down. His gleaming eyeballs show more awful than the glow which hangeth by the points of his dread crown. And at his feet, where lightnings play, the fatal sisters sit and weep and curse their day. Lo, one with eyes all wide, as she were sight denied, sits blindly, feeling at her distaff hold. One is distraught with woe, letting the spindle go, her starry sprinkled gown doth shivering fold. And one right mournful hangs her head, complaining, "Woe is me! I may not cut the thread. All men of every birth, yea, great ones of the earth, kings in their counsellors have I drawn down, but I am held of thee. Why dost thou trouble me to bring me up, dead king, that keepest thy crown? Yet for all courtiers hast but 10 lowly, unlettered Galilean fishermen. Olympian heights are bare of him who worshipped there. Immortal feet their snows may print no more. Their stately powers below lie desolate, nor know this 30 years Thessalian grove or shore. But I am elder far than they. Where is the sentence writ that I must pass away? Art thou come up for this, dark regent, awful this? And hast thou moved the deep to mark our ending, and stirred the dens beneath, to see us eat of death, with all the scoffing heavens toward us bending? Help, powers of ill, see not us die. But neither demon dares, nor angel deigns reply. Her sisters fallen on sleep fade in the upper deep, and their grim lord sits on in doleful trance, till her black veil she rends, and with her death shriek bends downward the terrors of her countenance. Then, whelmed in night and no more seen, they leave the world a doubt if ever such have been. And the winged armies twain their awful watch maintain. They mark the earth at rest with her great dead. Behold, from Antwerp wide, green Atlas heave his side. His moving woods their scarlet clusters shed. The swathing coif his front that cools, and tawny lions lapping at his palm-edged pools. Then, like a heap of snow lying where grasses grow, see glimmering while the mooning lustres creep, mild-mannered Athens, dight in dewy marbles white, among her goddesses and gods asleep, and swaying on a purple sea, the many-moored galleys clustering at her quay. Also 'neath palm-tree shade, amid their camels laid, the pastoral tribes with all their flocks at rest, like to those old world folk with whom two angels broke the bread of men at Abram's courteous quest, when listening as they prophesied, his desert princess being reproved her laugh denied. Or from the Morians' land she worshipped Nilus bland, taking the silver road he gave the world, to wet his ancient shrine with waters held divine, and touch his temple steps with wavelets curled, and list, ere darkness changed to gray, old minstrel-throated Memnon chanting in the day. Moreover, Indian glades where kneel the sun-swart maids, on Gunga's flood their votive flowers to throw, and launch in the sultry night their burning cressets bright, most like a fleet of stars that southing go, till on her bosom prosperously she floats them shining forth to sail the lulled sea. Nor bend they not their eyne where the watchfires shine, by shepherds fed on hills of Bethlehem. They mark in goodly wise the city of David rise, and gates and towers of rare Jerusalem, and hear the scaped Kedron fret, and night dews dropping from the leaves of Olivet. But now the setting moon to curtained lands must soon in her obedient fashion minister. She first, as loth to go, lets her last silver flow upon her Master's sealed sepulchre, and trees that in the garden spread she kisseth all for sake of his low-lying head. Then 'neath the rim goes down the night with darker frown, sinks on the fateful garden watched long, with some despairing eyes far in the murky skies, the unwished waking by their gloom foretell, and blackness up the welkin swings, and drinks the mild effulgence from celestial wings. Last, with amazed cry, the hosts asunder fly, leaving an empty gulf of blackest hue, whence straightway shooteth down by the great Father throne a mighty angel, strong and dread to view. And at his fall the rocks are rent, the waiting world doth quake with mortal tremblement. The regions far and near quail with a pause of fear, more terrible than aught since time began. The winds that dare not fleet drop at his awful feet, and in its bed wails the wide Ocean. The flower of dawn forbears to blow, and the oldest running river cannot skill to flow. At stand by that dread place he lifts his radiant face, and looks to heaven with reverent love and fear. Then, while the welkin quakes, the muttering thunder breaks, and lightnings shoot, and ominous meteors drear, and all the daunted earth doth moan, he from the doors of death rolls back the sealed stone. In regal quiet deep, lo, new waked from sleep, behold, he standeth in the rock-hewn door. Thy children shall not die. Peace, peace, thy Lord is by. He liveth, they shall live evermore. Peace, lo, he lifts a priestly hand, and blesseth all the sons of men in every land. Then with great dread and wail fall down like storms of hell the legions of the lost in fearful wise. And they whose blissful race peoples the better place lift up their wings to cover their fair eyes, and through the waxing saffron breed, till they are lost in light, recede and yet recede. So while the fields are dim, and the red sun his rim first heaves in token of his reign benign, all stars the most admired into their blue retired lie hid, the faded moon forgets to shine. And hurrying down the sphery way, night flies, and sweeps her shadows from the paths of day. But look, the Saviour blessed, calm after solemn rest, stands in the garden 'neath his olive boughs. The earliest smile of day doth on his vesture play, and light the majesty of his still brows, while angels hang with wings outspread, holding the new won crown above his saintly head. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Sonnet of the Moon by Charles Best, Read for LibriVox.org by Victoria Sandels. Look how the pale queen of the silent night doth cause the ocean to attend upon her, and he, as long as she is in his sight, with her full tide is ready her to honour. But when the silver waggon of the moon is mounted up so high he cannot follow, the sea calls home his crystal waves to moan, and with low ebb doth manifest his sorrow. So you, that are the sovereign of my heart, have all my joys attending on your will, my joys low ebbing when you do depart. When you return, their tide my heart doth fill. So as you come, and as you do depart, joys ebb and flow within my tender heart. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Stay by John Frederick Freeman. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Stay, thou desired one, stay. Brighten the curious darkness of the world. Cold through the chill dark swings the sleeping world. Sense heavy, dreaming dully of clear day. No moon, no stars, no sound of wind or seas. Wearily sleeping in immense unease. Dreams, dreams, the world of day. Stay, thou adored one, stay, who on the dark hangst lamps of gold delight, gold flames amid the purple pit of night. Stay, stay, who the cool dawn's most lovely grey makest lovelier with rose of far away. Stay, thou who buildest wonder of things mean, more truly so they're seen. Stay, nay, fly not, nay, stay. Youth gone, remain thou yet and yet. Though the world spin in darkness and forget the light, stay thou, whose coming's joy and flight despair. Thou, unimaginably more than fair, brief, unsustainable, strange dream, stay yet, lamping the world's close, unsustainable dark with golden, unimaginable day.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Terrible Infant by Frederick Locker Lampson. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. I recollect a nurse called Anne, who carried me about the grass. And one fine day a fine young man came up and kissed the pretty lass. She did not make the least objection. Thinks I, aha, when I can talk I'll tell Mamma. And that's my earliest recollection. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. A Valentine by John Marchborn Cooley. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. Oh, for a brief poetic mood in which to write a merry line, a line which might, could, would, or should do duty as a Valentine. Then to the woods the birds repair, in pairs, prepared to woo a mate whose breast shall fondly share this world's huge load of ceaseless care, which grows so light when borne by two. But ah, such language will not suit. I'd better far have still been mute. My mate is dead, or else she's flown, and I am left to brood alone, to think of joys of vanished years, and banish thus some present tears. But then our life is but a dream, and things are not what they seem. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Vicar of Bray by Unknown. Read for LibriVox.org by Sherr. In good King Charles's golden days, when loyalty no harm meant, a zealous high churchman was I, and so I got preferment. To teach my flock I never missed. Kings were by God appointed, and lost are those that dare resist or touch the Lord's anointed. And this is law that I'll maintain until my dying day, sir, that whatsoever king shall reign, still I'll be Vicar of Bray, sir. When Royal James possessed the crown, and popery grew in fashion, the penal laws I hooted down, and read the Declaration. The Church of Rome, I found, would fit full well my constitution, and I had been a Jesuit but for the Revolution. When William was our king declared, to ease the nation's grievance, with this new wind about I steered, and swore to him allegiance. Old principles I did revoke, set conscience at a distance. Passive obedience was a joke, a jest was non-resistance. When Royal Anne became our queen, the Church of England's glory, another face of things was seen, and I became a Tory. Occasional conformists base, I blamed their moderation, and thought the Church in danger was by such prevarication. When George in pudding time came o'er, and moderate men looked big, sir, my principles I changed once more, and so became a Whig, sir. And thus preferment I procured from our new faith's defender, and almost every day abjured the Pope and the Pretender. The illustrious house of Hanover, and Protestant succession, to these I do allegiance swear, while they can keep possession. For in my faith and loyalty I nevermore will falter, and George my lawful king shall be, until the times do alter. And this is law that I'll maintain until my dying day, sir, that whatsoever king shall reign, still I'll be Vicar of Bray, sir. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
West Wind in Winter by Alice Meynell. Read for LibriVox.org by stepheather. March 1st, 2023, Bangalore, India. Another day awakes, and who, changing the world, is this? He comes at whiles the winter through. West wind, I would not miss his sudden tryst, the long, the new, surprises of his kiss. Vigilant, I make haste to close with him who comes my way. I go to meet him as he goes. I know his note, his lay, his color and his morning rose, and I confess his day. My window waits, at dawn I hark his call, at morn I meet his haste around the tossing park, and down the softened street. The gentler light is his, the dark, the gray, he turns it sweet. So too do I confess my poet when he sings. He rushes on my mortal guess with his immortal things. I feel, I know him, on I press. He finds me twixt his wings. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Canto 15, From When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed, by Walt Whitman. Read for LibriVox by Rags. To the tally of my soul, loud and strong, kept up the gray-bound birds, with pure deliberate notes, spreading, filling the night. Loud in the pines and cedars dim, clear in the freshness moist and the swamp perfume, and I with my comrades there in the night. While my sight that was bound in my eyes unclosed, as to long panoramas of visions, and I saw askant the armies. I saw, as in noiseless dreams, hundreds of battle flags borne through the smoke of the battles, and pierced with missiles I saw them, and carried hither and yon through the smoke, and torn and bloody. And at last but a few shreds left on the staffs, and all in silence, and the staffs all splintered and broken. I saw battle corpses, myriads of them, and the white skeletons of young men. I saw them. I saw the debris, and debris of all the slain soldiers of the war. But I saw they were not as was thought. They themselves were fully at rest. They suffered not. The living remained and suffered. The mother suffered, and the wife, and the child, and the musing comrade suffered, and the armies that remained suffered. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Wilt Thou Love God as He Thee? By John Donne. Read for LibriVox.org by Lynda K. Arndt, February 2023. Wilt thou love God as He thee? Then digest, my soul, this wholesome meditation. How God the Spirit, by angels waited on, in heaven, doth make His temple in thy breast. The Father having begot a Son most blessed, and still begetting, for He ne'er begun, hath deigned to choose thee by adoption, co-heir to His glory and Sabbath's endless rest. And as a robbed man, which by search doth find his stolen stuff sold, must lose or buy it again, the Son of glory came down and was slain, us whom He had made and Satan stole, to unbind. 'Twas much that man was made like God before, but that God should be made like man, much more. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
You Are Old, Father William, by Lewis Carroll. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson and Lee Vogler. You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white, and yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right?
In my youth,
Father William replied to his son,
I feared it might injure the brain, but now that I'm perfectly sure I have none, why, I do it again and again.
You are old, said the youth, as I mentioned before, and you've grown most uncommonly fat. Yet you turned a back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason for that?
In my youth,
said the sage, as he shook his grey locks,
I kept all my limbs very supple by the use of this ointment. 1 shilling a box. Allow me to sell you a couple?
You are old, said the youth, and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than suet. Yet you finished the goose with the bones and the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it?
In my youth,
said his father,
I took the law and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life.
You are old, said the youth. One would hardly suppose that your eye was as steady as ever. Yet you balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever?
I have answered 3 questions, and that is enough,
said his father.
Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to such stuff? Be off, or I'll kick you downstairs.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.